Well, welcome to our episode. We're super excited. Today we have a guest.
Yes, we do. Our first guest.
Our first guest,
Yes.
Dr. Pete. He is amazing. So I'm just going to introduce a little bit. I have known, it's actually our 5-year anniversary since I've known you in September.
Oh, that goes back a ways.
It goes back a ways, yeah.
Aw.
Which I'm so excited. And it was so funny on how I ended up meeting you.
How did you guys meet?
Yeah, I was working for a huge company,
Okay.
#1 lender in the country. So I was working for them for a while, and we started this new thing that was going on as far as like, oh, mental health, and like you have some benefits that you can use, and they gave us a list of therapists, and I was going through like a lot of stuff at work, just like stress,
Stresses.
pretty much everything
Yeah.
else. When it comes to mortgages, so that was fun.
Yeah.
And I went down the list. I picked my top 3. I called Dr. Pete. I called 2 more people.
Okay.
And for some reason, the other 2 just didn't work out. And Dr. Pete calls me back. We set up a time.
Nice.
And that's how we met.
It was meant to be.
It was meant to be.
The universe has spoken, Dr. Pete. You're here.
And then 5 years later, here we are. We used to see each other every 2 weeks, which we still do
Nice.
sometimes.
Okay.
So it's great. It's the best thing ever.
Oh, the journey is beautiful. And now you're helping us with an episode of the podcast. So thank you so much for
Well,
being here.
Glad to be here, and thanks for the nice words.
Of course.
It's been reciprocated.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
my heart. All right, well, let's dive into this. This is going to be a very fun and exciting episode.
Yeah.
Just asking Dr. Pete some questions, getting his opinion, and, just hearing what he has to say, which let's do it.
Yeah.
We have a few, right? That
We do have a few.
Let's crack it.
I think one of the reasons why I did want to invite you to our podcast, it's because I don't know how I was back in the past, but I feel like right now a lot of people are talking a lot more about mental health. And I feel like the times have changed where everybody is so much more stressed out. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think there's been a lot of social upheaval in the last several years, and that has certainly impacted people. COVID impacted people quite
Yeah,
a bit
that's true.
psychologically. So yeah, I would agree with your assessment. Things have gotten a little more stressful in the last several years than maybe in the past. It's not new, it's just a question of more, okay?
Yeah.
And, I'll say I see things maybe getting better in the next few years. We're hoping, less stressed in the world.
Fingers crossed.
But right now, things are interesting, we'll say.
Yeah.
Indeed. And remember, you call me Dr. Pete. My name's Pete, and I'm
Yeah.
a master's level therapist. I'm not a doctor.
Okay.
I'm a master's level therapist. I don't want to be misrepresented.
Of
you
course,
know.
yeah.
So, but I'm old enough to be called Dr. Pete, I think.
I think you have the experience for sure.
Yeah. Do you think, Pete, that people are starting to realize that going to therapy is more important than it was back in the day?
I think so. Yeah. There's so many well-known personalities who have come out and talked about their struggles with
Yeah.
depression, anxiety, bipolar sometimes, addictions. And when well-known people talk about that openly, it helps other folks accept it better than what was true in the old days, we'll say. I was watching the news this morning, and Meghan and Harry. Meghan was being interviewed about her depression and what she went through, and it's very public knowledge. She
Yeah.
talks about that
Yeah.
openly, and well-known person. And again, it just reduced the stigma little by little. you
Yeah.
know. So Robert Downey Jr. has been instrumental in addiction, and I'll forget other names, but
Yeah.
pretty much every week someone shows up in the news who's struggling with or has struggled with mental health or addictions and
Yeah.
other compulsive disorders. Yeah.
So I come from like a European family, and my parents grew up in communism, so there's no such thing as talking about feelings.
Right. Right.
So for me, it was a little bit tough to understand that I needed to go to therapy, especially with, like the stigma behind it. You're just like, oh, why do you have to go to therapy? Why can't you just, and I've always grown up to be like, you're fine. Like,
Yeah.
why
Brush
are
it
you
off,
crying?
right?
Like, you're fine. Like, just you know, you're strong enough to do it. So like you get this feeling that you're so strong, why can't you fix it yourself, versus actually talking your feelings out. And what I found out is that I can sit here and just be like, oh, you're good, you're doing great, whatever. But what I do is I stuff my feelings in like a box that's like locked, and they're just there. But later on they come out. And when I started talking to Pete, it's a completely different story. So I really recommend it for a lot of people. But
yeah, when we stuff feelings, we talk about stuffing feelings, it's always painful feelings. No one stuffs happiness and joy. You know?
Correct.
It's always the painful feelings, and stuff them means we repress them. Our minds puts it out of our conscious awareness, but it's a little bit like having an infection. At first you don't feel it, but if you don't attend to it, then after a while the infection spreads and it affects other things. Emotional pain comes out either directly through talking about it, sometimes behaviorally, you know, doing certain things to act out the pain, or it comes out indirectly. You know, through psychosomatic problems, through maladaptive behavior, misdirected anger, you know, those kinds of behaviors. Which we don't want.
Yeah. So, question for you, Pete. I saw a video yesterday just about like mental health and a little bit about just developing things as a child to an adult and how you associate and handle them. We talked about it in our last episode that we filmed. Being an empath is someone that is very like sensitive to emotions, can like come in a room, and if Emma is sad, I can instantly know like Emma is sad, let me help tend to it. Someone said the reason why people that are empaths is because as a child, the environments that they were in wasn't necessarily like the safest and healthiest, so they had to turn and flip a switch of what was needed in that environment. What are your thoughts on that? Do you agree?
When you grow up in a difficult environment, you, as a child, you learn to, you know, figure out which way is the wind blowing, what's happening around me emotionally, so you know how to act. If things are fine, you can be fine, interact with the family. If there's tension or anger or whatever, then the child's going to retreat, you know, go to the room. In the old days, read a book. Maybe nowadays, get on the video game or something. But it's partly a defensive thing. But the other thing is some folks just have that. They're tuned to other people. And they had fine upbringings. It's just whatever happens in the human mind, we have skills and abilities, and sometimes they're just there. So, which makes life interesting.
yeah,
That's beautiful.
now you obviously love what you do, but what is the one thing that makes you the happiest about your job?
Well, I've been doing this for over 50 years. When I was in college, I was looking for a part-time job my sophomore year. And back in those days, you had a job board with index cards, help wanted. Well, Trinity's in Connecticut, and not far from the campus, a mile, maybe less, was Hartford Hospital, and they needed a psychiatric aide. So that's interesting, that's different. So I went down, and you're hired.
Nice. Heck yeah.
And I did that for 3 years. And several things happened then, but one of the things that really was amazing, the medical director was a psychiatrist, Dr. Ben Weasel. Terrible name, but wonderful doctor.
Mr. Weasel.
He was old at the time. In his office behind his desk was a picture of him and Freud. Okay.
Oh wow.
This is like 67, I think, when I met him. He gave me my first therapy.
Really?
I got free therapy from a remarkable psychiatrist.
That's awesome.
And then Dr. Ibel, psychologist, he talked with me. So that really changed my life. And I figured, I really want to do that, you know? Plus, it's interesting. You know, freshman year, you take all these different courses. I don't know what I want to do. My father was a businessman, and I did the business. I knew I was going to join the military. That was another big aspect of my life. But I saw psychology and experienced it, and that was more interesting than other things. So now, you know, I did graduate, went into the Air Force, flew over in Vietnam for a year. I'm a veteran and came back, was in the Guard for 14 years in Arizona. But I came back and left active duty and got my master's degree in counseling from ASU.
Nice.
And started working full-time in the Air Force in '73 as a therapist, and then went to St. Luke's addiction program after the Air Force for many years, Camelback for a year, and then private practice for 30 some years now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Part of it is me giving back, you know, and you know, not everyone gets better, but most folks improve to a degree, one degree or another.
Yeah.
Tremendously rewarding.
Yeah.
Tremendous rewarding. And then folks will send referrals, okay?
Yeah.
And which is very rewarding.
Yes.
A few years ago, I had a young gal come in, early 20s, and she started talking with me, and she goes, I think you treated my grandfather at St. Luke's back in the 70s.
No way.
And
That is
actually, I
wild.
remembered him. He was well-known
Wow.
person. And
Oh my
third
gosh.
generation, I saw the grandfather, the father, and then the daughter. You know,
Awesome.
That's
20
so wild.
It was kind of cool.
Yeah.
It was kind of cool.
I love how they were all getting therapy too. Like that's such a big, great thing of like passing it down of like, go to therapy, let's talk about
Yeah.
it, let's work on it. And you did such a great job that they felt comfortable to say, hey, I have the perfect person, go talk to them.
It was
And
nice.
just
It was
kept
very
going.
nice. And that was an addiction issue. The grandfather was alcoholic, the dad. The daughter, 22, 23,
Yeah.
something like that, was, you know, she, a young person out drinking and partying, but she worried about it. And so
Okay.
she came in real early and,
Nice.
Yeah.
kind of nipped in the bud, so to speak.
Good.
So it was very cool.
Yeah.
It was a very, very cool
love
thing.
that.
I like
That's
that.
beautiful.
Yeah, but it's that sense of giving back and that personal reward you get when someone is doing better, and
Yeah.
they tell you and you see it.
Yeah.
And that feels great.
Yeah,
That feels
I love
great.
that.
Yeah.
I've referred a lot of people to you because I love what you do, and I love how you help me throughout my whole entire things, especially like on the passing, to just understand.
Yeah.
And now our conversations, I feel like they have changed a little bit. When they're not much, it took me like 2 years to open up. Like, you know, it just took a little bit to open up, but like,
that's not unusual.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's a long game, right? Usually to have some
Yeah,
kind.
sometimes folks come in, it's a very specific problem, and it's very, oh, well, if you interpret it this way, it'll work out. Oh, okay, it works very fast. But most of the time, it's kind of a uncovering
yeah,
Yeah.
situation. People, you have levels of awareness. Most of them are unconscious. And as things get identified, talked out, that, you know, it comes deeper.
yeah,
It's deeper. And it's not a one-day thing.
Yeah.
Okay? Neither is it 20 years. Okay?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the old Freudian analysis thing where you lay on the couch and just reassociate for forever. Hardly anybody does that anymore.
Yeah.
That type of therapy is not really done too much.
Yeah.
So.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
The theory is still applicable in some ways, but we work much faster than.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it, right? With medicine and learning is things change as you get more of a sample size and you realize the effect it has. You can therefore make a more strategic approach moving forward.
Yeah.
Which I think that's a
That
perfect
would be
example.
correct. Yeah.
Now I like analyze things in a different way, and like if there's something that's going on, I'm like WWPD. I was like, what would P do?
Let's go. I love that.
I'm like, what would P do
pause.
on this? You just pause and reflect on things,
Yeah.
and then we move along. So I think that's great. We did put some questions together because in my age, and obviously we're a little bit different in age with Beth, and she has like her own friends at her age, and they think differently, which I feel like people at my age never really thought about going through therapy, even in America, but even my Albanian friends. Or the European friends, like our families never, really knew much about it or talked about it. And even at the beginning, when I told my mom that I'm going to like therapy, she's like, "What? Like, what are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Because they never knew.
Right.
And now I'm like, I'm going to therapy, and she's like, "Oh, okay, cool. Like, what did you guys talk about today?" Or just she's more engaged, or my
Yeah,
dad as well
yeah.
too. Versus at
Good.
the beginning, they were just like, "Why?
Yeah.
Like, you can talk to me." I was like, "No."
It's like you're actually one of the reasons why I think I'm going to go to therapy.
Well, and
That's funny.
but that is a common parental fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They think, oh, you're going to blame mom or blame dad.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I said to you, I tell everybody, it's not a question of blaming anybody. We don't blame. We don't blame the
Yeah.
parents at all. We
That
just
gets popular.
Dude, he's another client right there.
we just understand.
Yeah.
Things people experience what we experience, we learn. Our brain forms neural networks about learning, which affects how we interpret things there on in.
Yeah.
And that can start very early
Yeah.
in people's lives. And but you can recognize the thought patterns, challenge them, and replace them with different thought patterns, different ways of interpreting what you're experiencing, which changes the emotion.
Yeah. What do you do at the end of the day to de-stress? Obviously, you see so many people and you take in so much.
Well, that's the trick. You listen. I listen. I think you thought I listened
But he fooled you.
attentively,
he did.
You know? And I'm taking in information, but I rarely take in the pain.
Okay.
I understand the pain. I can feel if you're sad. I know what that feels like. When you're scared, I know it feels like. I've been scared in my life very intensely sometimes. But it's different to empathize as opposed to absorb. Because therapists who absorb pain tend to have tough times. Okay. So most of the time, when I go home, oh, okay, day's over. You know, how'd it go? And then relax, read, or watch TV, or you know.
Okay.
If something difficult's happening, sometimes that stays with me for a little while.
Yeah.
Then I'll usually talk it out with my mentor, or you know, write things down. And okay, what do I do? And that helps relieve. And you know, I practice breathing, meditation,
Nice.
you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But usually I go home and okay, sure.
Like a done deal.
Yeah.
Like you're done with work and that's it.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay, you need that. Yeah.
It's good to have that almost switch. You have to, because at the end of the day, like you're a person and you have emotions and feelings, and what you do is heavy work.
Yeah.
Heavy work.
Can be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can be. So to be able to disassociate at some portions is so crucial.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of crazy too when you think about it. Like, for example, like when I think of a therapist, I think of like a therapist, but I also kind of forget like they are a whole person as well too. Just like a teacher. Like students forget that teachers are actually people and they live lives and they go to Target and all this stuff. But like there's just, it's crazy. But like there's just so much more to it, and you guys have your own things that's going on. And you mentioned you have a mentor that you speak with. It's like a therapist for your therapist.
Exactly.
You know, because you have things you have to talk about.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Crazy.
You know? And my better half, Barbara, she's easy to talk with,
Good.
and she's nice to have around.
Yeah.
For someone who thinks of taking a step towards therapy, what are some words of advice that you would give them to help them in their journey?
You want to be clear, as clear as you can be, about what issue or issues you want to address, okay? Do you want a male therapist? Do you want a female therapist? Sometimes that makes a difference, sometimes not, but sometimes it does. Age can be a factor, okay? I like to think with great age comes wisdom. Sometimes that's true. But, someone that you can relate to, but relating to therapists really, it's not like a peer.
Yeah.
And it's not really a friend. Hopefully we act friendly. But it's a specific type of relationship. So you go into your first meeting, on the phone you talk to people, you get a feel for it, okay? Make sure the insurance covers those type of things.
Yeah.
But when you go in and meet someone, you get a feel, is this a good fit? And that's not always the case, okay? For lots of reasons. So you go in, you meet someone for the first time, I don't know. If it's, I don't know, maybe you give it a second.
Yeah.
But talk to the person. Say, I didn't feel totally comfortable or something, let's explore that. Sometimes it's like, I'm not talking to this guy.
Yeah.
And then just you either tell them at the end of the session, which folks find hard to do, or you call back and say, I decided to go someone else. And the therapist is going to say, I hope it goes well.
Yeah.
Because we know that not everyone's going to react in a positive way to us. That old thing, transference, which is a psychoanalytic term, okay? But it's true. We meet people, and if we associate them with someone from the past, that impacts our relationship with them.
In a positive and a negative way?
Either.
Okay.
It can be both. If it's
Yeah.
positive, you're going to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
If it's negative, you go, ooh, you know. You know, you might remind someone of their father or these days grandfather who maybe was abusive in some way.
That's
And they don't think about that.
Yeah.
They'll say, yeah, I don't know, why don't I like you? Do I remind you of anybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, well, yeah, my grandpa had gray hair and he was horrible.
Yeah.
Okay. It could be a connection in your mind, and I'm not grandpa.
Yeah.
I am a grandpa, but not
Yes.
your grandpa.
That's
Okay?
crazy. It's
Yeah.
just when you say like uncovering, like you're just uncovering
Well,
things
that's right.
of the layers in the brain.
Yeah.
That's right. You
It's
know?
so crazy. I didn't
Yeah.
think about that. But now that you said that, I will
Makes
tell
sense.
you why I chose you.
Oh, really?
Because now that hits. I will tell you why.
Cafe snaps.
Yeah,
That's beautiful.
I swear. So now that you said that, what put me in perspective of things is I've always had very strong men in my life. And obviously my grandparents were in World War II and, you know, that route. So my grandpa was my favorite person ever.
Yeah.
Because, you know, with everything that happened with my mom, they kind of like raised me. So because also on top of it, you were in the Air Force.
Yeah.
And I never wanted, this is going to sound weird, but I never wanted a female's perspective on things because I think they think the same as I do. I always loved like an opposite
Yeah.
perspective on things because they will think like a guy thinks. If it's like a relationship or whatever it is in my life, like I want their perspective because it's different than mine versus female is more emotional. Guy is more logical, I feel, in a way.
Often.
So
True.
yeah, like grandpa, that equal to like a strong male that would give me good guidance,
Yeah.
and I think that's the reason why.
Well, it could
There you
be.
go.
Yeah.
It could be.
I thought about
You know, that
Yeah.
happens.
Rock uncovered. Boom.
Right. Well, I was talking to someone the other day. There was a very popular TV show called Blue Bloods.
Okay.
Tom Selleck plays the police commissioner of New York City,
I've seen the commercials.
and his sons are policemen and everything. And we like the show. We're now watching the reruns, the old,
Yeah.
old show, because we didn't see it so much when we were, younger. But anyway, I was thinking about Tom Selleck plays this wonderful father figure, police commissioner, who, is a cop. He did brave things, but now in dealing with all of the personnel issues that he had to deal with, he has this wonderful kind of paternalistic ability to make things work out. And I just wonder if that's not part of the reason why so many people like the show. I never knew my biological father, and I think that's part of the reason, because I identify with Tom Selleck.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I would have identified with one of the active duty cops, but then I identify the guy who sits in the office,
Yeah. And that's me there.
doesn't go out and get shot at, back in the day. But
You would have been
no,
down back then. Now you're like,
No.
let's think about this a little bit more.
No. But I was thinking about it just the other day, and I don't know if they're going to renew it or not. It's been off for 13 or 14 years.
Yeah.
It had a long run. I kind of hope they do.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
awesome.
It's an interesting psychological thing for me to
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
What a good realization right there of like digging a little deeper and not knowing like, maybe this is to why I do enjoy this. And I,
Yeah.
That'd be part of it.
crazy.
I think that's wild. I think based on my experience that I've had, and the beginning was a little bit hard for me to like open up or kind of like acknowledge things. And now every time like we go in, like I'll sprinkle things. I'm like, I thought about this, but maybe because of this.
Yeah.
And Pete's like, yeah.
like,
So
"You're
like
doing
now
it."
like my wheels are spinning versus
Yeah.
before we'd be like, just forget the feeling, move it aside.
Yeah.
And just kind of like let it go and just move on. Like I was like shoving things in like this box, but now I'm like, okay, instead of that, like let's rehash it out.
Yeah.
Let's think of why that happened and what's going to happen later on to prevent the same cycle that keeps on going, either with a relationship or friendship or whatever it may be.
And interpret it differently, interpret
Yes.
it in a more realistic way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's so cool. How do you recommend helping people to get past the stigma of going to therapy?
It's still there. It's still there. I think in general, men tend to be a little more therapy shy than women do.
Yeah.
And part of that's cultural. But again, we go back to so many people who are well known have talked about being in therapy and being helped by therapy of one sort or another. And you talk to a person about, you have to make this decision. For one thing, it's confidential.
Yeah.
It really is. There's a lot of well-known people who are in therapy and you don't know about them, okay? Because we don't say it, and we can't.
Yeah.
Legally and ethically,
Yeah.
we can't disclose anything. But that's there, and you just point that out to folks that there's so many people getting help now. No one's going to know about it, okay? Your own family, some people come in, don't tell their family that you're in therapy at first.
Yeah.
Because the fear of the family rejecting them or coming down on them. Funny thing happens though, if you do start talking to folks about it, very often what you'll hear, even from family members, is, well, yeah, I went 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And, oh, really? Never told me. Well, I didn't want to tell you, blah, blah. And I'm glad you're going,
It's like a little secret of, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And that happens so often.
Yeah.
So often. Because folks, well, it's personal and there is that stigma. And like parents don't want to affect their kids with that sometimes, okay?
Yeah.
So those types of approaches.
Do you think people are afraid that they're going to be judged if they were to share a lot of things internally?
Yes, that is very common. You're absolutely right about that. The fear is if I open up, is the therapist going to think poorly of me? The answer is no.
Yeah.
We don't, okay? Number one, a lot of us has dealt with their own stuff anyway. That's kind of part of the reason we got into the field. But not everybody has, but there's still, the idea is, if you're a physician and someone comes to you with a broken arm, you don't say, wow, what's wrong with you? You had a broken arm. You treat the broken arm, right?
Yeah.
And if someone comes with depression or anxiety, it's not a moral failure. It's not, something that people, I think I'll be depressed one day.
Yeah.
It's something that either partly genetic, runs in families, partly life experiences, how they get interpreted. It's just a condition that can be usually helped and treated. So the whole, from the therapy point of view, it's not a judgment thing.
Yeah.
It just doesn't enter into our thinking.
Yeah.
And if you ever meet a therapist who was judgmental, don't go to him or her.
Yeah.
Do not refer.
Do not refer.
Do not do that. No.
Yeah. I think a lot of when I've talked past with my friends and stuff, and they're like, oh, well, it's just a lot that I'm going on, and I think internally they know that some of the choices that they've made are bad choices. So they think that going to therapy, they're going to be judged for those bad choices. So they're like, I could do this myself. Like I can heal it myself or whatever it is. And I'm like, I don't think they're there to judge you. I think they're there to help you.
Right.
Understand things and express like what you're feeling or even this hurt that you have internally because you're judging yourself. They're not going to judge you because it's their job.
Right, and the judging yourself is part of the cognitive distortion that people do. That self-critical part that people can often have. That's what you want to look at and put in more realistic terms. Everyone makes mistakes, some more, some less, right? But making a mistake does not mean that your personhood is wrong, okay? It's a mistake. Some mistakes are recurrent. Someone with an addiction, for example, will make that same mistake over again because the addictive thinking is more in control of their brain than the realistic thinking is. But go to treatment and therapy, often that turns around. And you say, well, hold it. That old way of thinking was pretty self-defeating. That's not working well. So let's try this one. And it works sometimes. Sometimes it takes 3 or 4 attempts. But eventually.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, you're just uncovering a lot of things and that takes time, right? You can only cover so much in the period of, having a few sessions to where you have to have that consistency. And I think people too are just a bit embarrassed and shamed. Like they feel shameful of what they need to talk about. And it's like a hard thing to open up. But I mean, it comes to accountability and wanting to better yourself and truly grow. You have to have those tough conversations.
That's well said. That's well said. And it takes a while. It took me a while to open up to my first psychiatrist. I didn't tell him everything right away. And I like the man. I really, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Do you think, why do you think that a lot of people who are struggling with addiction lapse?
With what?
Why do people that are struggling with addiction, they lapse? They go to
Oh,
therapy.
they relapse.
They relapse, yes.
Yeah. Well, the short answer is, the addictive thinking, number one, it's a biologically based thing. Okay, we think because of how our brain works.
Yeah.
How we think affects how our brain works.
Okay.
The reciprocal relationship works both ways. But with addiction, substance abuse, compulsive, gambling, compulsive sex, compulsive spending, compulsive eating, that part of the brain is a little different. It's called the reward center. It's actually 3 different parts of the brain that work together. So that someone with an addiction will say, well, alcohol is the most common still. When they drink, the brain reacts differently than someone who's not alcoholic. It's a different thing. And what that means is how they interpret the drinking is very different. A normal drinker, given a certain level of maturity, gets drunk, throws up, and says, I don't want to do that again. That's really unpleasant. Someone with the addiction, oh, well, no, he's had a good time.
Oh, that's crazy. I never thought about
Interpreting-
that.
If they're not throwing up, they didn't do it. They didn't have a good time.
They didn't have a good time.
That's crazy.
That is so...
Which is, obviously, I will say obviously, that's a distorted thinking.
Yeah.
But that's the addiction in control of the thinking. Okay? That's the
I have
addiction.
never thought of this.
I think it kind of goes into the play of people say like, but did you die? Like,
But
you're
did you
fine,
die?
but did you die?
Yeah.
Like, but did you throw up? You didn't have a good
Or
time.
how many times have you driven drunk? Oh, lots. I never get caught
Oh,
because
wow.
I'm very careful when I drive drunk.
The instant justification of it's fine.
That's the addiction talking.
Wow.
The non-addicted person, if he or she does drive drunk, the next day will say, oh my God, what did I do?
I shouldn't have done that.
What did I do?
Yep.
I am not going to do that one again. And I will say that Uber has really helped that quite a
Good.
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Uber guys tell me they make most of their money Friday and Saturday night.
Makes sense.
Late
Yep.
at night,
They're out.
and the bars are
2 o'clock in the
closing.
morning.
And right around then.
Right around then.
Am I your last ride? No, I'm just starting for the night. Oh, okay.
That's funny.
But it's that the physiology affects the thinking, and
Yeah.
folks can rationalize anything. Okay? Human beings were capable of tremendous sacrifice, tremendous affection, being tremendously helpful. We're also capable of being pretty
Yeah.
destructive.
Yeah.
Okay? It's all how we.
Now I'm going to ask you a funny question. Do you think that
Yeah.
people that are drunk, they speak the truth when they're drunk because they're not controlling their feelings?
That's an old saying. I think
You want to know?
I think Shakespeare said that in Vino Veritas.
Yeah.
In the interest sometimes. Here's the caveat.
Yeah.
If the person has a history of over drinking,
Yeah.
you've heard of the denial system with addiction, denial self-delusion. Okay,
Yeah.
if
They
someone
call it
said,
Delulu these days.
they call what?
Delulu these days.
Deluma?
Delulu.
Oh, Delulu? Oh, really?
That's
Really?
a new fun word for delusional.
Yep.
Oh, okay, all right. Well,
Your
but
next session, you can use it. Oh, I miss your sound a little delulu, girl.
yeah, with the younger patients,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
it'd probably be.
Use it
Yeah.
appropriately as needed.
Yeah, there you go. You got it. But if there's a history, the person with the addiction, the denial system works frontal lobe, cortex, so that I don't see my problem clearly. There's no difference how obvious it is to everybody else. I don't see it consciously. Unconsciously, I know. None of us fool ourselves. We always know we're doing something that's self-destructive or destructive towards others.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, what comes out in intoxication is often anger. And it's directed at someone, often
Okay.
family members, because they're the closest.
Yeah.
Not always, but often. If you're really drunk to the boss at the Christmas party, which is probably not a good idea,
Yeah.
not a good idea in place.
Yeah.
But the anger is not really at the family or at the boss.
Yeah.
The anger is really at self.
Got it.
It's misdirected.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, when people are angry, there's anger there's always emotional pain underneath anger. Shame, guilt, fear, frustration, helplessness, the whole gamut.
Yeah.
And that's what's fueling the anger. So someone with an addiction or compulsive disorder, that their behavior is harmful to themselves, affecting others, guilt, shame, all that comes out as anger. And the denial system, it's not me, it must be you, so I'm angry at you. But really, it's this.
Internally.
Yeah.
And I
It's
feel
internal.
like at some point they would have to come to the realization, if I'm angry at everybody, is it really everybody or is it me?
That would be good to come to. And in therapy, that's usually part of the process, you know? And again, the first session, not too often does that come out, you know? But when you educate people, well, here's what's happening psychologically. Does that fit for you?
Yeah.
And usually they'll say, well, yeah. Well, here's the deal, okay? And if you quit drinking, I won't be so angry at yourself. Or drugging or compulsive, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever
Yeah.
the problem is. So, yeah.
Wow. Never thought about
Food for
that.
thought right there.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I don't know. Have you been drunk before and you were angry at someone?
No, I get like I'll get like sad, or I'm just like really like joyful and like, oh, like I don't know, like I feel like myself, I get kind of like caught up in the future of things. I don't really acknowledge the present. So when I'm drunk, I'll just be more like, wow, like I'm really grateful you're here. Like I'm grateful we got to find time to all hang out on a Friday. Like I haven't seen you in months. You know, like I just get like that. Like that's me.
Okay.
But not angry necessarily. Like, I hope I don't ever.
Well,
but-
and you might not be.
yeah.
You know, because are you feeling guilty or ashamed about anything?
Yeah. Thank you.
And
Okay.
if,
That's good.
if you're not,
Yeah. Okay.
then you're having a good time with your friends or family, whoever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not getting sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're not
no,
puking in the
I'm
morning.
the person that wakes up the next day and I'm like, God, I don't want to do this. Like, I want water. I want weeks and months of not doing this, and then.
That's crazy.
Yeah. How about you, Emmis? Like, do you? How are you sometimes?
I think I'm a happy person when, like, I haven't been drinking in a while now, so I don't really get drunk or whatnot. But in the past, where I have, like everybody has when you were growing up, and I know my limits. If that's weird to say, like I know when I'm feeling like at a point that I'm like, okay, I should drink some water and kind of stop. I've never been the person to be like, let's just keep on drinking, because I know how I'm going to feel in the morning and I'm going to regret it.
Yeah, I
Like-
think knowing your limits is great. A lot of people don't, so I know it sounds weird to say that, but it's like totally respectable.
Yeah.
and good.
Know the
that you
limit.
know your limits.
Now, when I was like 21, nobody really knew the limits. We were just
Yeah.
drink and drink, so it was fun. But I don't think I've ever gotten. Maybe there have been a couple of times, and I don't think it was more like anger towards somebody else. I think it was more hurt that was coming out of a certain relationship or a certain thing that was going on in my life, and I think it was just more like towards that. And internally, it was just the hurt feelings on it.
Yeah, you're
So.
reflecting what you were feeling.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah. What do you think is one thing that everyone should add to their daily routine to lower stress or better themselves?
On a regular basis, exercise
Okay.
would be way up there, number one.
Yeah.
Generally, folks don't move enough. They get enough exercise. It's good physically, but it's also good psychologically. Okay.
Yeah.
For a couple of reasons. One, when you exercise, you've heard about the endorphins and dopamine get released, and it seems to be true. All the researchers say it, and it's all by that. But also, whenever human beings, we do something that's constructive, that's helpful for ourselves, the fact we do it is tremendously reinforcing to us.
Yeah.
You know, folks come in for therapy, their first session. And sometimes I'll just simply say, oh, and what brings you in to see me? And they talk for 50 minutes.
Yeah.
And all I'm doing is nodding, you know? And I take notes, but I'm nodding. I'm not saying anything profound.
Yeah.
I'll come back to the next session, and they'll say, you know, that was the greatest hour of my life. And I didn't say a word.
Yeah.
You just have to listen.
Yeah.
But I listened, paid attention, and they took that step. They took a step to help themselves, and that is very reinforcing.
Yeah.
Okay? Exercise is the same thing. Secondarily, some kind of relaxation, meditation, journaling, or reflection. People say you sit down, reflect on your day or what you've been experiencing. Journaling helps that, or just sitting, thinking quietly for a while. Eating healthy is good.
Yeah.
You know, not too much alcohol, not too much sugar, not too much of those kind of things. That's very helpful. Having a support system,
Yeah.
people you can talk with, okay? You know, they got your back.
Yeah.
Okay, they're not going to judge you. You
Yeah.
know? That's tremendously beneficial. Those types of things.
I love that.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I think a lot of people do forget like those little things. If you can incorporate some of it into your daily, it'll have a tremendous effect.
Yeah.
You know, over time, just
Yeah.
moving your body. Like I know when I'm, like in the line of work that I'm in, it's very stressful. There's a lot onto it, and just going to the gym or running or something, like it's nice to just like almost close my mind off for that time, not let that affect me, and also to just like exert any frustration, any like worry that I have, just like lifting or running or whatever the case is. It
Whatever
definitely
you're
helps
doing.
me. Like I feel like I'm a fresh start when I leave the gym.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
you know, come back from a run of like, okay, like life is okay again. Like we're
Right.
actually gonna survive tomorrow.
We'll be
Shower,
fine.
yeah.
Yeah, because there's
Right.
moments, man, where I'm just like, I'm done. Like, there's no way, you know.
Yeah.
But just that little time I put in for myself definitely helps, and it makes me kind of like recenter.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
What I'm saying.
Yeah, it's true. He knows what he's
We
doing.
got them on the checklist. So we got gym, we got journaling or anything that helps you do better,
Reflection.
reflect on your day or yourself, and then support system. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's a great.
And for those that don't have a support system, you can definitely build one with
That's
the right people.
Good for you. That's exactly right. You,
Yeah.
you find groups that you can identify with and develop relationships there.
Yeah.
Again, not always easy for people to
Yeah.
do. Sometimes anxiety prevents that.
Yeah.
You know, meeting people, therapy will help there probably. But long run, we need people who, they know us, we know them, and we know they got our back. And we
Yeah.
have theirs.
Yeah.
Okay?
It has to be both ways.
It's
Can't be
both ways.
one-sided.
It's
Yeah.
both ways. That's what 12-step programs are based on. It's a mutual self-help kind of
That's
thing.
true.
Yeah.
And that's been wildly successful for millions of people.
Yeah.
And you can do that in any group, you know,
Yeah.
make that happen.
The one thing that I love that you suggested that I would do was going to Special Olympics. So Beth and I both went to Special Olympics,
Oh,
and
did
that
ya?
was
Good.
one of the best things that we did.
Yeah.
So we loved it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good, good. You're helping folks, and you're meeting other people who like to help people, and
Yeah.
it's a great cause.
Yeah.
It's a great cause.
And Beth's mother-in-law, technically mother-in-law, you know, she has a coffee shop that she, 2 coffee shops, yeah?
Yeah, 2 coffee shops in Surprise. It's called Spencer's Place.
Oh.
It's for special needs. My partner's youngest brother, he has special needs.
Yeah.
So she was realizing, she was a teacher for quite a while, and she was working in the special needs department area, and realized that a lot of her students were just, you know, going to school, and after high school, like kind of nothing, you know, like they weren't working, they weren't like still benefiting themselves in any way. So she saw that lack in the community, and she built 2 coffee shops that employs special needs
That's
employees.
very cool.
Yeah, so to
That's
get them moving,
very
to get them,
cool.
you know, help,
Yeah.
they're making money, they're learning things, like they're being involved in the community, when typically after high school
Right.
or 22, I think is when they usually cut it off. Like it's
Yeah.
kind of nothing, you
Yeah.
know, which
Yeah.
is unfair for them. So
No, that's right, that's right. Because a lot of folks with special needs can still be very productive.
yeah, it's
Contribute
crazy.
to the workforce and you know, that kind
Yeah.
of thing, and have their own support system.
Yeah, and they just maybe need a little bit more attention than others, but they can still be super
Yeah,
successful.
that's cool, your mom doing that? I live in Scottsdale, so I won't be making that a
If you're-
surprise too often.
If you're ever driving out there and you want a really good cup of coffee,
I will stop by Spencer's.
check it out, Spencer's Place.
Absolutely, that's cool.
It's great quality products too, so it's
Very
a
good.
double win on that.
I love
for
it.
sure.
Well, Pete, any last wisdom words for our audience?
Make decisions that make yourself happy and healthy.
I love that.
And then leave the world a little better place than you found it.
Yeah. Don't be Delulu.
Don't be
Don't
delulu.
don't be
Get the
delulu. No, and thank you for having me.
Yes.
It's been a pleasure.
Yes,
Yes,
thank
we
you.
loved having you. So thank you for joining us. Check us out. Please like us on TikTok and Instagram, and start following us on YouTube as well too. So we really appreciate you. And we'll see you on our next episode.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Bye guys.